Hey everybody, I am Rick and this is Lennon.
Hi.
She just happened to be up and she said that she would come in and say hi on the show before she goes back upstairs. Right, Lennon?
Mhm.
What are you doing? Can you tell them what you're doing? You're hanging out with Layla, right? Playing?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, you want to go upstairs?
Yeah.
Okay, you can go. I got my new shirt. You close the door, baby. Lennon, you close the door. Thanks, baby. So I got my new shirt. Leave the gun, take the cannoli. Got it on Amazon. Let's see here. That's a Beato shirt right there, right? It's one of the greatest lines of any movie of all time. Who says it, though? That's the question. Who says that line? Somebody knows this. Who says that line? This line in The Godfather? Clemenza. There we go. Double K, the man. There you go. Clemenza. I knew you knew that. Is the trigger too tight, Rob? You know that. I left it extra loud to scare any of the people, right? There you go. Anyways, shouldn't have called in sick. There you go. It was improvised. Was that improvised? I heard that when Marlon Brando slaps Johnny Fontaine, "What's the matter with you?" That was all improvised. So I don't know if that's true, but that is amazing. Okay, some important things that I've been thinking about. I had discussions with two of my oldest friends just before this. Three of my oldest friends. And it's something that we've talked about on here before, on the other channel, or maybe on Facebook, and something I'm going to make a video about because I'm really curious to get people's opinion. But I was talking to my buddy Hal. Hal is a producer, lives out in LA. I've known him for years. I've known him since the 90s. He's from Boston originally. He's a hilarious guy. He played bass with Iggy Pop for years. He's a really incredibly good musician. And we were talking about who is going to be remembered in 100 years and why the difference between classical music, where, for example, Beethoven, who died in 1827, so that was 191 years ago. So why is Beethoven's music still being played? Well, Beethoven's music is being played because there was no recordings of Beethoven playing it. That's part of it. It was written down and reinterpreted by people thousands and hundreds of thousands of times. So is that going to be the same for rock artists or for hip hop artists or for anyone that's alive now that makes the quote unquote definitive recording of their music? You know, once the recording's made, yeah, sure, there's reinterpretations of pieces. You know, Yesterday, they say, is the most recorded song of all time. What's up, Brett? Love to get you to weigh in on this. But is, are the Beatles going to be talked about in 100 years? Really? Are they going to have the same impact that Bach had or Beethoven? I mean, Bach died in 1750. So how many years ago would that have been? Let's see, 250 years would be 2000, right? So 2000 or 250 plus 18, 268 years ago, Bach died, and we're still talking about him. I talk about him. Keith Richards will still be alive. John just said on here. But so, anyways, Hal says that he thinks only one person will be remembered. He said typically when these movements die, there will be one person. He thinks that that Chuck Berry will be the only one remembered from rock and roll. It's an interesting idea, but you know, Elvis. Okay, Brett. I think they'll have the same impact as Rodgers and Hart. Oh, and of Gershwin. Okay. Now, if you look at, so I said to Hal, and this went on with a conversation with my friend Brian and my friend Pat. That we all went to college together. I talked to both of them. How many of Beethoven's contemporaries are forgotten? The Beatles are Beethoven, but the Beatles. Okay, so their first record came out 56 years ago, just about. Okay, 56 years ago, 1962. So we're already halfway. I mean, Bach died 268 years ago. Okay, so to match the Beatles, we would have to go. Let's just take Beethoven for example. 191 years from now is 2152. Okay, so 2152. Are people going to be talking about Rubber Soul in 2152? This is the topic of tonight. Whatever record survives the nuclear blast will be remembered. Information is stored in a much more efficient way than it used to be. That's very true. Very true. Will people watch any of these episodes? Will people watch me talk about this exact topic in 2152? You know, in 100, that's not even 100 years from now. Less than 100 years, 91 years from now. I wonder how technology will influence this. Interesting point, bring out how music got around back then. Yeah, so you have to think, Mag says the Stones will still be going then. Eucus, music aside, we must start thinking about what kind of world we would be leaving to Keith Richards. Elliot, the Rick Beato time capsule, there we go. Will the internet be, what will the internet be in 2152? Rob says he believes they will. So I thought that today, some PhD candidate from this century might write a dissertation on my live streams. So I thought that I'd take some phone calls tonight. I want to get people's opinion on this. I'm really curious to see what people think about this. What will music sound like in 2152? How much has music changed since 1827, right? Or, well, 91 years ago. How much has music changed in the last 100 years? So 100 years ago, my dad would be 99 if he were alive now. So in 1918, a year before my dad was born, what was going on? Well, people like Stravinsky were alive, and Schoenberg, and Bartok, and and Strauss. I mean, all these contemporary composers were alive then. Copland, although Copland was born in 1900, so he would have been young. Well, he'd been 18 years old, but not, there was a lot of, ragtime was going on. There was no jazz yet. There was big band music was kind of in its infancy. Stravinsky versus Skrillex. There you go. That sounds like a video that I should do right there. There's a huge market for sheet music, which is true because that's how people communicated music. Elliot, music that transcends into art will still be remembered and studied. The Beatles might be studied like jazz is studied now, and jazz is still will still be studied. That's a uh, that's very optimistic, and I think that that's true. I think that that's true. Nowadays, videos will be up to 42,000. No, they better be way over that. Come on. Stravinsky was the first form of metal. When people cut, Jerry Seinfeld has a bit about when do people cut over into wearing the same outfit, as it happens in all sci-fi movies and TV shows about the future. Maybe that's me wearing my black t-shirts, although I do have the white writing today. So John says, what kind of guitars will be around them? Human enhancements could allow vastly different experiences musically, among others. I mean, there's all these kinds of things to think about. In 1918, well, we had the end of the First World War, basically. Woodrow Wilson was president, right? Or was he president in 1919? No, he was president then. Anyway, so a lot has changed, obviously. So we'll see what. It'll be interesting. I'd love to get some of your opinions. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I remember how to do my my thing here. Hold on. I'm typing some stuff in. I'm not looking. Okay. What's my phone number here? Who remembers my phone number? I had it on a piece of paper. Debussy died in 1918. Max Reger died in 1916. Look at that. Centennial death of Debussy this year. Exactly. There you go. Your dog ate it, Eli. There it is. 470-485-3002. That is the number right there. I have it written down here, though, so I was going to show it on the screen for those. Well, you guys can see it in the chat. So the lines are open. Remember, is Rick lagging? I'm not sure if I'm lagging. I'm not sure what lagging means. Let's see here. There we go. Eli, what's up?
How you doing, Rick?
Doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm number one, man. That's pretty cool.
You are number one. Tell everyone
awesome.
Where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Detroit, Michigan.
Excellent.
Right out of just in the Royal Oak suburb of Detroit.
Oh, I spent every summer from the time I was about 5 till the time I was 12 in Royal Oak at my aunt's house, the whole summer at my aunt and uncle's house. This is in the 60s and the early 70s. It was great.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so
killer.
So what do you
think?
So
what year are we talking about now?
So I'm talking about what music will be remembered in 100 years, or will the Beatles be remembered? Will the Rolling Stones, or will Beyonce be remembered in 100 years? How does the recorded music, the fact that you can actually hear the artists do it, how does it affect that? What are your thoughts?
I think that to be blunt, I think there's good music and there's bad music. I think the Beatles, they'll be there, but it'll be gloomy, But I think they'll still be around. I think classical's getting phased out quite rapidly, but there'll still be speckles of that. It really kind of depends on which way the industry goes, I think. And, the more stuff that gets put out there, and it kind of all depends on the direction we go. I think that, Beyonce, maybe, but I think the classics, the quality stuff is going to have the best chance. But that's a good question. I mean,
Do you think that classical music will be phased out? You think that people will care about Beethoven?
I think that for the most part, I think the lack of education, and the music programs getting diminished in this country, and other factors are just going to kind of put it back. I think there'll be speckles of it. I think that it'll still be available to some degree, but I think that the whole culture and growing and playing it, I think there'll be less people reaching for an instrument to play it, which is, I think, the problem.
Well, which is actually going on right now already. So
yeah, I mean, you see the beginning, and everybody and his brother is making a record, and the content's not always, what it should be. But
the barrier to entry on making a record is the lowest it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can make a record.
Yeah,
now and put it out.
I think back in those days, back 20, 30 years ago, you even, I don't know, less than that maybe, but you had to work harder for a good song. You had to really put in the work and the time, and even if it was 3-4 chords, if it was catchy, it worked. And some of the best songs are 3 chords, 4 chords. But I think it's really going to stand up to the test of time. Is going to be the quality. The quality stuff.
Well, I like that you said you had to work a lot harder for those songs back then. That is true, and that's probably what's made them.
Yeah, a lot of times people wrote stuff in a room together.
Yeah.
Or for the most part, and not flying Pro Tools files back and forth, because you're losing something there. It's
sure.
Writing by yourself can be really one-dimensional. I hate it, but we're forced to sometimes. But that interaction is slipping away from us too. I mean, you got to get people in the room and get the groove.
That's right. Excellent, Eli. Well, fantastic. I really appreciate you calling in. It's great to talk to you.
Hey, man, outstanding. Thanks for having me. Love you guys.
You're the best. I'll see you.
Peace.
Bye. Okay, who wants to call in next? Will The Godfather be watched in 100 years? Of course. 1972, so it's been out for 46 years, right? I watched it a couple days ago. David, maybe we'll be able to play 2 gigs simultaneously. I'm sure, right? With holograms. What will happen with copyright music in 2021-52? Good question. I need a moderator when I do live streams. Too many comments and questions. There's actually not that many. I read every single comment on here. I only respond to certain ones, though. Cardi B will be remembered in 100 years. There you go. Who stars in the Godfather remake in 10 years? That's interesting. I'm surprised there hasn't been one yet. Well, probably because Francis Ford Coppola is still alive. That's why there hasn't been one. Let's see here. My friend Pat, he's looking. He doesn't see anything going on here. Ay. He was going to try and, let's see here. I don't know what to tell him. I don't know why he can't find the channel here. Does anybody ever have trouble finding this channel? Because I know that sometimes there's there are issues here. I'm going to have Pat. I'm going to tell him to call in here. Let's see here. 485-3002. Call in. This is my friend Pat. He can't figure out how to get on. I'll just have him call in. You guys are all auto-notified, right? And you just click on it, correct? Just like anytime I never have any problem getting on anybody's live stream. So, Matthew, the only one having trouble connecting to the Beato forum? There was a lot of posts today, I'll tell you that. There's a ton of posts. I told people to put in the suggestions for for my new series of what makes this song great. And man, there was, I want to say 50 threads, something like that, or more. I can't even remember. Is he on the wrong channel? He's probably on the wrong channel. Rick, lagging? Am I lagging? I'm not lagging. I'm sometimes lagging. Possible future automation, UBI, more people will have time to learn to play music. Now that could be true, actually. That's an interesting, that's interesting. So speaking of this, about making contact with another species, I had a friend in college that thought of this, had this idea that, and I think I talked about this a long time ago. I think I talked about this on Facebook, but since you think there's a bustle in my hedgerow, since the overtone series is based on our combination of oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide, right? If we had a different gas that humans breathe or is on a different planet, would it be a different overtone series? Okay, if it was going through helium or hydrogen or something like that. So I thought of this. We used to talk about this. If you had an amplifier, a guitar amp that was encased in a airtight chamber and you flooded it with gas, what would it sound like with helium gas? What would it sound like with hydrogen? What would it sound? Probably blow up with hydrogen. But what would it sound like with these different gases that may have different overtone series? So I thought about making a video about this, but how would you even test it? So maybe people, maybe there are different worlds out there with different beings that have different atmospheres that have completely different overtone series. Would it be the same? We must have some scientists on here. Thermodynamics, besides frequencies that human can't hear, and frequencies human can't hear. Xenon is really fun, drops your voice an octave. David, yes, good idea. Acoustic attenuation and air. So imagine you got a guitar amp and you flood it with krypton gas, and then you're playing your guitar and you have a mic in there and you're a physicist, Heckler73, but you don't want to open your textbook now. Okay, let's see who's calling here. Oh, it's Pat. Hello. Is it you, Pat?
Bobby.
You're on.
Bobby, I thought I'm watching you live.
No, you're on. Everybody can hear you.
Oh, wow. There's like a 40-second delay. It's weird.
Well, turn off your thing.
I did.
Okay, turn it down. So everybody can hear you, Pat. So we're talking
Most
about...
people have ever heard me at one time in my life.
We're talking about the... I'm talking about the Hearth amplifier. Do you ever remember this? The Hearth used to talk about this. Pat's nickname... My nickname for Pat is Bobby, and so he calls me Bobby. That's how we do this. So that's really his nickname, but he calls me that. So Pat is one of my best friends in the world. We've been friends for 35 years, and
36 years, I think now.
36 years. I try to forget as many of them as possible. But anyways, do you remember that Hearth used to talk about having an amplifier with different gases in it, and it would have a different harmonic series, and it would sound completely different? That was his idea.
So test it on your program. You can probably get a grant to do it. Figure out what it would cost to do it, and test it. And your TV station or whatever it is, internet channel, could be the place to premiere otherworldly harmonic series.
Yeah. So I mean, it may be a completely different kind of music. You could play, things that exist right now through that and see what it sounds like. Your electric guitar would sound just the same in vacuum space as on Earth, but you would not be able to hear it. Okay, so I'm not talking
Yeah,
about
but
that,
we're not
though.
talking about vacuum space. We're
We're
talking about other.
we're talking
other
about a
gases.
different atmosphere of with a different gas, different properties, or it could be a blend of. It could be a blend of different gases, just like we have a blend of gases here.
Well, it might be a moot point because it might be that only very similar to ratios to what we have could support life, and only life could perceive music. So you have to do the experiment with gases that can support life. So is there another, I'm not a scientist, is there another ratio of gases very different from our own that could support life, that could actually perceive music?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that there could be other different life forms based on different, that are not carbon based. Maybe they're silicon based. I mean, who knows? Who knows what could support life? Moths.
Well, I don't know.
They think can hear up to. There's certain moths that can hear 380K. I mean, I'm not sure how they do this, how they figure that out, but it's pretty insane. There's all these comments going on here. Swamp gas music, methane based guitarists. I mean, this could be music of the future, right?
I heard of a guitar player whose last name was Methane, I think, or Methane or something. Have you heard of that guy?
I'm getting all metaphysical. So, okay, Pat, so we talked about this, about what music is going to be remembered. And are the Beatles going to be remembered in 100 years? Elliot McKinley says yes, they'll be studied in conservatories. Will they be like Beethoven? What do you think? What's your opinion on this?
Well, the very question demands other questions. But if you're just going to take it at face value and not get into the stuff about why there will be anybody listening to anything, and you just think about assuming a certain constancy of civilization, I guess. Yeah, I think the Beatles will be listened to, just like the guy said that we studied in conservatories. I think absolutely.
So Pat, Pat is a high school music teacher. He teaches, he conducts orchestra, He teaches guitar, and he's a jazz musician that gigs. And he's got two girls, 24 and 18. Is that right, Pat? Or 23 and 18?
23 and 17.
23 and 17. Okay. Do your girls listen to rock music at all?
Yes.
But predominantly, what do they listen to? What does your 17-year-old Gemma listen to?
Well, even that statement that you just made, would have to have some qualifications, because I don't think that the fact that things are coming through the carbon-based atmosphere that is messing with my kids' eardrums, or that generation's eardrums, it doesn't mean that they're listening to it. It means they're, you know what I mean? I mean, really. I mean, it's
okay.
It's
wait,
really
everybody! If you guys go on my Instagram page, which is Rick Beato 1, I have a video of Pat in his car that I posted on my Instagram where he's listening to Alan Holdsworth, and his daughter's complaining, and he eats. What do you say to her that she put in the video? Something like it's my.
She videoed me.
We're going to listen
it was
to
a rare
non-brewed
authoritarian
condiment.
moment.
Wait, what was that?
I said it was a rare authoritarian moment for me.
And what did you say? You said something like, it's my car, I'll listen to what I want, right?
I told you.
Pat's doing air guitar. Alan Holdsworth's playing. He's got the wind blowing in the car. His daughter's in there telling him to turn it down. And
it's cranking. I'm like, geez, shut up and listen, for God's sake.
And she actually took the video of him, and she put the little the words on what was it? My car, my rules. What was it, Pat? I forget. It's very funny though.
I don't remember, but it was pretty funny. I mean,
You sent it to
I
me,
mean,
and
she
I
posted it to
immediately
Instagram, so it made an impact on her.
yeah.
She posted it. It's just like the kids I teach in my guitar class. Like I gave them a little survey after the midterm about, what did you like the most? What did you not like the most? What do you think you could do to become a better guitar student? And then I said, what can you think of anything that we did that really wasn't very fun and you didn't like, but in retrospect you're glad we did it? Yeah, that was kind of a leading question, but they also probably wouldn't. A lot of them wouldn't have thought about it if I didn't phrase it that way.
Right.
And the response I got from a lot of those kids was, "Yeah, I really didn't like reading the notes, but I'm glad I did it." I mean, the ones who are more serious about music and who really love music the most and really want to play the guitar the most, they're the ones. And they would complain when I was making them do, connect the things on the staff with a notation, or whatever. And they're the ones who said on the test, "Yeah, well, this wasn't fun. We didn't really like it, but I can see that I'm glad I did it. I can see I got something out of it. Thank you."
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so let me ask you this. So Pat also conducts the...
So the reason that I'm sorry, but the reason that I said that is because I think listening to music is like that too. My daughter never said thank you for leaving Alan Holdsworth on in the car, but it made enough of an impact that she posted it to Instagram. Okay?
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It cracked me up because she had your quote and you were smiling and playing air guitar and it was cranking and you didn't care what she said and it was hilarious. But Pat, since you teach these high school kids guitar, how many of them actually listen to music that have guitars in them?
A higher percentage than you would think, but there's already been a sort of sorting just by nature of the fact that they're taking a guitar class in 2018 at the high school. They signed up for a guitar elective. So already, who's going to sign up for a guitar elective? Well, kids who are, for their parents or their own experiences or whatever reason, they're dialed into a little bit more of a retro experience. So, you can't take that as representative of 2018 because I've already, it's already
sure, it's
usually been, yeah.
Yeah, by the people that sign up.
So I'd say, 80% of them listen to guitar music with the guitars in it. They're very part of the few percentage of people who still connect musicianship and playing an instrument to the music that they connect with.
Okay, but compared to
we're entering into a phase, where there's really not a connection with music. Where music, the experience of music and listening to music is the music part is almost peripheral. It doesn't even matter. It's whatever the associations are, the images, the videos, the products that are being sold, the experiences that are being marketed, connected with the images and the products. I mean, music is simply the oral experience is just a connector. The reason it doesn't matter that it's so shallow and so silly compared to past generations is because past generations, it was about the music. When you heard the Beatles on the radio, there was the Beatles on the radio. Now, whatever you hear, as I said, the musical experience is totally secondary or tertiary or worse because it's not about that. It's about the images of the product or whatever. So music just becomes an associative thing and not a thing in and of itself.
Yeah, that's I totally agree. There's a lot of interesting comments going on about this. And Pat, what do you think about reading music and teaching people to read to learn how to read music, especially guitarists? What's your feeling on that?
I tell them, I don't think it's the only thing that you do, and it doesn't have to be the main focus, and it doesn't have to be this sequential thing that you have to go through this purgatory before you get to heaven. It can be just something that you do in an ongoing way, and you understand that it's an important part of it. But I think I just say to the kids, I just say it's like learning a language, and I make the analogy that even the English language and how much, literacy in terms of being able to express yourself in the written word and read the written word confers great benefits upon those who can do it. But it doesn't mean that you can't be incredibly a good storyteller and understand and perceive great poetry and everything without being literate. You don't have to be able to read it or write it, but if you can read it or write it, you go way, way farther and you can experience way, way more. It's a kind of technology thing. It's kind of like being able to get in a car as opposed to walking. Yeah, I'd rather get in a car. You see a lot more. You go a lot more places. Well, that's why you teach kids how to read music.
So there's a comment. Subi-Doo says, "What is good music?" with quotes. What is good music, Pat?
Well, I don't charge that much for lessons. Probably like $100 an hour. But she wants to contact me. I'll be glad to teach her about that.
It's a hymn, but that's okay.
Then it's 200.
Okay, Elliot says great art will always be appreciated by some, but not all. That's definitely that's definitely the case. That's pretty much been the case that's pretty much been the case forever.
Yeah.
Okay, some people are saying, who's that guy on the phone? The guy on the phone is my friend Pat Ryan. Pat and I have been friends since 1981 when I was a sophomore and he was a freshman in college. And Pat is a high school string director, orchestra director, and it's just string orchestra, right, Pat?
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. And then Pat also teaches guitar, and he lives in Cape Cod, and he plays gigs. He's a jazz musician. And he's the former New York Jets backup quarterback. Somebody just wrote that.
Nice.
So there you go.
Why'd you put my picture up? I told you not to.
Anyways, all right, Pat. I'm hanging up on you as usual. I'll talk to you later, okay?
All right, man. Take care.
Bye. There you go. That's what my conversations with Pat, walking versus riding in the car. The Holdsworth thing with his daughter, though, was classic. How did Pat first year of Holdsworth? Oh, that's a good question. Probably both of us were probably, since we. Okay, so IOU came out when we were sophomore, when he was a sophomore, and I was a junior. Okay, so 82, I think, maybe 83. I think 82 or 83. It might have come out IOU, but we knew Holdsworth playing because we both had the first UK record and we knew Jean-Luc Ponty. So we talked about Holdsworth and we're very familiar with him then. And Pat and I went to see Holdsworth play many times. As a matter of fact, if you go to Pat's Facebook page, there's a picture of him and Alan Holdsworth together from 2014. So Pat was with his daughter in New York City and was in Midtown, get this, went into this restaurant and sat down with his daughter, was eating, and he noticed that Alan was eating at the bar. I mean, what are the chances of that? So Pat went up and talked to him, and I should have had him tell that story. Pat went up and talked to Alan, and has his picture with him there. And Alan invited them to the concert. I think got him tickets to it that night. I don't know if Pat was going to the concert. Anyways, I can't remember the particulars. But if you go to his Facebook page, then you will see the picture of he and Holdsworth together from 2014. And Alan looks good in the picture. But do I remember the restaurant? I'm not sure. Somebody asked me if I know the band Carnival, Andre, from Australia. Of course, they're a heavy rock band. They're a really cool band. They have some really great sounding records. Tom says Holdsworth very approachable. Met him a few times. Jay, you met Lawrence Taylor? You talking about the football player Lawrence Taylor? In a similar fashion? I met Holdsworth many times, and he was always incredibly nice. Incredibly nice. He was Lawrence Taylor was probably easier to recognize. No, Alan was very easy to recognize too. But Alan would come out. The first time I met him was at a gig in Rochester, and he was sitting at the bar. I always talk about that. And he was sitting at the bar having a drink. They were doing setup for his thing, and no one noticed because people didn't know what people looked like back then. I knew from looking in magazines what Holdsworth looked like, or looking on the back of album covers. So I recognized he was sitting at the bar having a beer. I went over and started talking to him. I talked to him probably, I'd say 5 or 6 times. And I talked to him pretty much every concert that I ever went to see him. Now I saw him more than 5 or 6 times, but I talked to him at least 5 or 6 times. And I have a lot of bootlegs. I know that some of the concerts that Pat and I went to, Holdsworth, in Syracuse, in Ithaca, or in Rochester, a lot of places in upstate New York we saw Holdsworth. Am I approachable? Am I approachable? That is an interesting question. I don't know. Anybody that's met me, am I approachable? I think I'm pretty approachable. Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely approachable. What's up, Hassan? Have I heard Melda's After Bach promo? I'm not sure what that is, so I guess no. The kicker of the Ravens is an opera singer? That is cool. Did learning piano change my visualization of the guitar fretboard? No. No, because Hassan, I've not heard that. I will check it out, definitely. I'm definitely approachable. Famous last words. No, but I can have a... no, I'm always nice in person, definitely. Don't ask my kids that, though. They won't give you the same story depending on if I've taken their iPads away from them. Philip, did I ever get a direct DM from you? Oh, you must have sent it to me on the YouTube one. I always forget to check that. I'll look at that, Philip. I never think of looking at there. That's one of the there's about 20 places that I get messages, okay? My Rick Beato personal Facebook, my Everything Music Facebook page, direct messaging on Twitter, direct messaging on YouTube, the forum, all this stuff. Let's see here. So I will check it out. I'm only nice on the internet. I'm not nice sometimes when I post these really snarky comments to people, just busting people's chops, and and I think it's funny. They probably don't think it's funny. Is Inferno Tender approachable? No, sometimes he is. Let's see here. Oh, Ray, the Wikipedia thing, I got to go back and look at that. Yes, yeah, I will look at that. Man, I got so many different things to do. It's crazy. Oh, what is this? The Alabama Shakes. Have I heard their new record? I've not. The records sound killer, though. They make great sounding records. I don't know who produces them, but they really, really make great sounding records. Really huge, really extended bottom end and stuff like that. I mean, great sounding. Get the interns to make me a wiki page. Well, Ray actually did it, so or started it. So I'm gonna take a look at that, and Ray, I promise I'll hit you back on that. Promise. I'm going to write myself a note here. Yeah, Aaron. I'll get Aaron and I'll see if Aaron can help me with that or GL. They can both, I mean, Aaron could help me with it for sure. Definitely. And Michelle, I don't know. Michelle is really involved trying to get the book, my Beato book, finished. These last 10 pages are have a lot of examples in them. Tell a joke, please. Oh boy, I'm not a good joke teller. I'm a terrible joke teller. What's my favorite studio to work at? Oh, that's a good question, Andrew. Well, I guess it'd have to be a studio that's open still. Probably. The studio I work at the most, that I've worked at the most, that's not my own studio over the last probably 7 or 8 years, is Blackbird in Nashville, which is a great studio. Blackbird has probably. I usually work in Studio D there. They have a big API board, and they have a big room. The only thing about the room D at Blackbird, it's the biggest room there, is that it's kind of dead. Electric Ladyland I've been to, I've never worked at, but Michael Brower, I went in, I had dinner with Michael Brower, who has a room there, and I met him there while he was, and listened to him do a mix. And it's a killer studio. I'd been there a couple times before, but I spent a few hours there watching him do a mix, which is really interesting. Why do sharks not eat clowns? I'm sure I know that. I'm not sure. I want to know the answer to that, though. Brett, if you could gather a dream team of living musicians together, who would they be? Let me think about that. That's a good question. Have I ever met Mark Ford? No, I've seen Mark play, though. I saw him play with the Crows back, oh geez. God, it's been 25 years ago, maybe. Is that right? Something like that. Abbey Road, Daniel. I've never been inside Abbey Road. So here's my Abbey Road story, okay? 1994, I hadn't moved to Atlanta. It's about 2 months before I moved to Atlanta. I was in London doing a recording session, and on the very last day that I was there, it was pouring like crazy, and I said, I've got to go to see Abbey Road. Well, this is before the internet, and there's multiple Abbey Roads. And so I figured out which Abbey Road it was. I go there. I mean, it was pouring like crazy. I got up to the front door, and they wouldn't let me in. They wouldn't let me in. So I got as close to Abbey Road as you can get, and they wouldn't let me in the front door. And I was really bummed out. And I said, man, I said, one day I'm going to go into Abbey Road, and they will let me in and give me a tour. And that day still hasn't happened. Elliot, you were lucky enough to produce 2 CDs with the London Symphony at Abbey Road. That's amazing. Were you in the Beatles room there? What is it, Studio 2? Because because that room is enormously big. Did you come in through the bathroom window? No. No, they were really hardcore. I mean, it was they were they were definitely having no. I told them, hey, I'm a musician, blah blah blah. They don't care. What do they care? I will get Elliot on a sounding off. That would be great. That would be great. So, anyways, yeah. So I've never been inside Abbey Road, so I can't tell you that. I wish I told you that I had worked there. Elliot can tell us how it is inside. I would love to go to. I'd love to go and do a. I'd love to do a show from Abbey Road. You know, once my channel gets up to 500,000 subscribers, I'll go to Abbey Road and they'll give us a tour. How's that? You interned under an engineer, came up at Abbey Road. You know, there's definitely some studios that. I'll tell you a studio a studio that I really like is NRG in LA. That's a killer studio. They have a great in their studio B, have a great Neve console that I've worked on that I love the sound of. I've worked at Avatar in New York. And I'm trying to think of what other rooms are open. Man, I worked in Hit Factory. I've worked in all almost all the big studios, but I worked in Southern Tracks here, which is no longer open. I worked in Cello, which is no longer open. That's East West Studios. I worked in Capitol Records Studio. I did a recording with an orchestra there, and it was all studio players did a live recording with a full studio orchestra in there in the Capitol building. I worked at Sunset Sound for a couple weeks before in LA. That was an old studio. I've worked at Arden in Memphis. I've worked at Ocean Way in LA. I've worked at Ocean Way in Nashville. So are big studios hurting with, yes, of course. Yeah, well, they have been for years. Sound City. Never worked in Sound City. Brett, Dream Team. That sounds like a great one. I'll go with that. I'll sit in on that session, not play. I'll just listen. Have I ever been to Steve Albini's studio in Chicago? I have not, actually, but I've seen videos where he does, talks about it. How about some organ? Joey DeFrancesco. I love Joey's playing. He's killer. I'd love to interview him. He seems like a cool guy just from watching him play. And the weird thing about organ is that playing organ is like playing a synth, with no resistance. And he has such great feel. So I have an IMDb page. What? No way. I do not. No way. There's no way I do. Is that true? Hassan, is it true I did vocals in Billionaire Record? Yeah, I mean, I did background vocals. What's the most popular song I've sang on? Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. I don't remember what I've sung on. I mean, I've sung harmonies on hundreds and hundreds of records. I do have an IMDb. Wow, that's interesting. I need to look at that. I have 3 soundtrack credits. Okay, that's why. I mean, I've actually been on many many soundtracks I've done music for. I did a I did a song for this soundtrack. The one where I talked about the when I worked with Cameron Crowe on Elizabethtown, and that song is called "It's the Same in Any Language." It was with the band I9, and so that was a closing credits song. But there was a lot of movies that I've had songs in, many more than 3, probably. I would say probably 20 movies or something like that I've produced songs that were in that. So Rob the Quiet Herbie. You're talking about Herbie Fully Loaded? Is that the one? Let's see. Is there any instrument I'd love to play but can't, that I'm annoyed and I can't master? Sax for you. Something that I would like to play. I'd like to be able to speak a second language, honestly. That's what I would like. More than anything else. Hold on a second. Yes. So, could I analyze the number one song I produced? So I didn't analyze it, but I did a video on it. I guess I could do a video on it. That might be interesting. I have all the tracks for it. The band's label. I have to find out about that. I think it'd be okay. I'll talk to the band. I'm actually going to write with the band. They I video chatted with the band Parmalee about 3 days ago. I've retired from producing, but they wanted me to come out of retirement to write with them again. So I said, I'll do a writing session with you guys. You can come down here, but you got to let me make a video of it. So, anyways, so that's, yeah. So, I will do a video on that. If I were going to speak another language, I'd probably start with Italian, because it's, Michelle tells me it's embarrassing that I can't speak Italian. My brother John can speak some Italian, but I can't do any. None of my siblings. My mom could speak Italian, Sicilian. Sounding off with Parmalee. When people write in caps, I don't read. I don't react to comments in caps. I already talked with my hands. I'm halfway there. You want to learn Irish, said the Irishman. Sicilian would be a great dialect. Yeah. Anyways, there's a great interview with that from the scene in Italy with Al Pacino, where he's talking about Francis Ford Coppola. They're doing the wedding scene, and Francis says, well, speaking Italian, they're not going to be able to hear it, but they, mimic it. He says, well, I don't know how to speak Italian. He said, well, just pretend to speak Italian or something like that. It tells this very funny story about that. Even though Al Pacino does speak Italian in the movie. But you can understand the Godfather scene when the cop gets shot. I'm going to speak Italian right now. Exactly. When I go to Finland, you're going to teach me Finnish. There you go. I want to come to Finland. Um, tell how to learn the modes. Rick, please tell how to learn modes and what the basic way to learn jazz. I have a lot of videos on that. Chick Corea speaks Sicilian. No, I don't believe that. Is that true? That'd be amazing. Caps, you don't have to yell. He reads all the comments. I read all the comments. I do. It's not like I don't see them. I just don't react to them all. I'm going to speak Italian right now. That would be a great t-shirt. So speaking of Finnish, so I did 23andMe, and we did 23andMe for me and the whole family with the kids, my wife, the kids, and Dylan is part Finnish. My kids, I don't know about Layla, but Dylan is definitely part Finnish. Lennon has more Middle Eastern, like I do. Obviously being Sicilian, you're going to have a lot of that. But Dylan is, and the kids have the kids have Chinese and, Korean. My wife's half Korean. So Korean and Japanese. They're actually more Japanese than Korean. And Dylan has Mongolian, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Finnish. Then we've got some, what is it? A lot of stuff. Incredibly varied. But obviously, Dylan is 70-something% European, and obviously a lot of Italian. But we're waiting to get Layla's back because she's got blonde hair, my youngest daughter. And it'd be interesting to see because they've got Lennon and Dylan also have some other Scandinavian in there, British, Northern Europe. Finns are about 5% East Asian in ancestry. And I definitely have a lot of Turkish. In mine, I have a lot of Turkish, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, that lot of through the Middle East. And Greek, Greece. So North African, all different. Ashkenazi Jewish, just really mixed percentages. 9% British, something like that. Obviously, Northern Europe and pretty much it. My kids really literally have all of, Eastern Europe, because my wife's dad is from is part Hungarian. So so it's really really varied. Asperger's syndrome, what does that mean? Are you asking about Dylan? No, Dylan doesn't have Asperger. Oboe lesson today. Yes, second oboe lesson today. Went great. Went really great. His teacher said Dylan sounded really well, really good today. And Elliot sent me the most hilarious thing. I'm gonna post that, Elliot, on my Instagram. The thing you sent me. It was really fascinating because his teacher was telling me, so she has multiple oboes. She was playing her Yamaha oboe. That's what Dylan has, a Yamaha. And she was showing she has more keys on her oboe than Heckler. You hate to be cautious. One needs to be cautious with DNA tests. I also did ancestry too, and my wife works and tests DNA all the time, so she knows a lot about that. So we're not amateurs in the. My wife runs a lab that tests DNA, so we know a bit about it. So more expensive oboes have more keys. Ray just said that. She said there's a key on there that she said that she's never played, that she's never used, because she can't play it and then reach with her pinky back to play this other key. And I thought that was so interesting. She goes, I've never played it ever. And she's amazing. And then her husband was practicing the trumpet. He's in the trumpet section in the Atlanta Symphony. And I asked her how much they practice a day. And she said that he practices 3 hours a day, and they had a concert tonight that they were going to play. And she makes reads for an hour and a half a day and practices for another hour and a half. So Dylan had a problem getting a couple notes out. So she said, when Dylan went to look at his fingering, he touched the reed to his shoulder by accident, really lightly. And she said that you need to be careful because you could damage the reed. So Dylan started playing again, and some notes were not coming out. She said, let me see your reed. Then she looked at it, and there was this little tiny spot in the corner that had gotten damaged just from touching it lightly like that. So she took it and she shaved some off, and then it worked. It's fascinating, though. It's really fascinating to see the minute. She held it up to the light, and you could see on the last quarter inch of the oboe, you could see that it was opaque, or you could see light through it. So really, really interesting. And then immediately the reed started to work again. So yeah, pretty cool. But they were going over all the different, there's multiple fingerings for different notes. I mean, I know about the oboe obviously know the ranges of the oboe. I know what things are possible to play on the oboe, but to see to go through and witness these these lessons are absolutely fascinating. I love being on a new instrument like that I've never played before, and watching Dylan or any of the kids learn things from scratch. But especially an instrument like that. I don't play any brass or winds, no. Although I did in college, I had to study. I took a semester of trumpet, a semester of trombone, a semester of clarinet, of oboe. I mean, I had to play everything, which was great because you really understand when you're playing these instruments, kind of when you take a whole semester in an instrument and you actually have to do a test on it and play, you understand things. I think everybody should go through. That was one of the greatest things about getting a music ed degree was getting to play all these instruments. So there you go. Anyways, all right, listen, I'm going to go here. We're all good. How about a video tour of my studio? Everybody asked me that. There's really nothing that interesting about my studio. I'm curious about how my Hackintosh is working. It works perfectly. Works great. I do not have a 6-string bass. I have a 5-string bass. Do I think that learning oboe will spark an interest in the concert band music? I'm already interested in concert band music. You guys are awesome. Love it. I'm going to be quiet now. Go over to the forum. Check in. Anybody that hasn't signed up, forum.rickbeato.com.